Welcome to episode 163 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Laws Guy. It's April 12, 1896, Liège, Château des Clésines, and Belgian football is still so young that it looks familiar and strange at the same time. There's a league table, there's a round robin, there are home grounds, referees, fixtures, return matches, and a title race. And yet, there are also no-shows, forfeits, half-kept schedules, and clubs from only a few urban pockets trying to invent a national competition before the country really knows what a national football season should look like. Into that half-modern, half-improvised world steps FC Liégeois. On this day, they crush Union d'Ixelles 9-0 in what becomes their last actually played match of the inaugural Belgian Championship. And that result puts FC Liégeois beyond reach as the first champions in Belgian football history. But how did we get here? Belgian football did not emerge in isolation. It grew in the same late 19th century sporting climate that also made Belgium a cycling country. That parallel matters here, because FC Liégeois themselves were founded in 1892 by members of the Liège Cyclist Union, the same sporting milieu that had also helped organize the first Liège-Bastogne-Liège. In other words, the first Belgian champions came directly out of the culture that was also building Belgian cycling. And even the geography of the first season tells you something. This was not yet a fully national game. It was a corridor game. Brussels was overrepresented. Antwerp was there. Liège was there. Bruges was there. That is your early Belgian axis right away. The capital and its clubs. The port city, the industrial east, and a West Flanders outpost trying to matter. The inaugural league had 7 teams. Antwerp, FC Brugeois, FC Liégeois, Racing Club de Bruxelles, Léopold Club de Bruxelles, Sporting Club de Bruxelles, and Union d'Ixelles. The organization behind it was not even a football-only body yet. On September 1st, 1895, the Union Belge de Société des Sports Athlétiques was founded at Le Coq-Tournai in Brussels, with representatives from multiple sports. Football sat inside a larger athletic structure, and the president of the football section was Baron Edouard de Lavelay, one of the great pioneer administrators of Belgian sport. He would matter for decades afterward, not only in football, but in Belgium's Olympic movement too. And that is another reason this story matters, because in those early years, football in Belgium was still learning how to organize itself internationally as well as domestically. British influence was everywhere, in schools, in expatriate networks, in club culture, in names, in sporting etiquette, even in the social types who first embraced the game. Club Brugge's own official history still tells the story through English presence and Anglophilia in Bruges. And the newest academic word on early Belgian football stresses the central role of British expatriates and school networks in the sport's rise before 1914. So when the first Belgian championship begins in November 1895, it already looks a little like a prototype of the future and a relic of the past at the same time. The campaign opens on November 10, 1895, with Antwerp hammering Sporting Bruxelles 8-0. By early December, Antwerp and Léopold look like the early pace-setters. Liégeois, meanwhile, enter the season strangely late, not until early February. The whole season carries that odd texture of modern league table but irregular execution. And the grounds themselves sound like Belgium between football and cycling. Velodrome van Surenborg, Velodrome de Longchamp, Rattenplein, Château des Clésines. It is football still living in the infrastructure of other sports. And the season truly was ragged. There were 5 forfeits across the campaign. So when we call this the first Belgian round robin, that is true, but it was a round robin with a limp in it. Still, by late March, Liégeois had gathered force. They drew Sporting on February 2nd. They beat Racing and Brugge in February. They beat Léopold 3-1 on March 1st. They lost at Racing on March 8th, their only defeat. But then they exploded again, winning 6-1 at Léopold on March 15th. By March 22nd, after drawing 1-1 at home with Club Brugge, and with Antwerp still chasing, Liégeois were top. On March 29, they were handed another 5-0 forfeit, this time against Sporting. And on April 5, they went to Antwerp and won 3-1, even scoring the first goal after just 15 seconds of play. And if you follow the season mathematically through the full schedule, April 12, 1896, is the day Liégeois have accumulated 20 points beyond Antwerp's reach. That brings us to the match itself. FC Liégeois 9, Union d'Ixelles 0. It was Liégeois' last played match of the season, though not the final match of the championship overall. That would come later, on May 3rd. But this was the day their own work ended, and it ended with a declaration. Union were the weakest side in the competition and conceded 61 goals in 12 matches, but 9-0 is still the kind of scoreline pioneers remember. Sam Hickson, the English forward who became the first top scorer of the Belgian championship, was both coach and the attacking star of the title side, so much that he also became top scorer the following year. But so what? Well, first, it established a dynasty. The first 8 Belgian titles were either won by FC Liégeois or Racing Club de Bruxelles. Liégeois themselves won the first title in 1896, then added 2 more in 98 and 99. So if you want a Belgian equivalent of those first epoch league setters, the club that teach a competition that what winning is supposed to look like, Liégeois absolutely belong in that conversation. Also, it shows how fragile the whole enterprise still was. Club Brugge's role is the clearest example. They were there at the start, but their own official history says financial and practical problems pushed them out after the first campaign. By 1897, the Bruges football scene had to reorganize, with the Brugeois line surviving, and the club later re-emerging properly. They didn't play in 1896-97 or 97-98, but were back in the top level in 98-99, and after World War I, finally won their first title in 1920. And the format kept mutating. That is one of the most striking things about early Belgian football. The first season in 1895-96 was a single 7-team round robin. Then clubs withdrew. Then the numbers changed. In 98-99 and 99-1900, the championship was split into 2 groups for the final. In 1900-01, it returned to 1 national division. In 01-02, it split again into 2 groups, this time with a final round. By 1905, Belgium had introduced a 2-tier system, so the basic idea of a league existed from the start, but the actual shape of Belgian football was still experimental for years. After World War I, the game began to settle. Belgium resumed league football in 1919. Antwerp hosted the 1920 Olympics, and Belgium won the football gold medal there, after that infamously abandoned final against Czechoslovakia, which we'll talk about in another episode. By 1921-22, the top division was up to 14 clubs, which looks much more like a stable national competition than the stop-start improvisations of the 1890s. And where does Liège sit in that longer arc? Important but not uniquely permanent at the summit. RFC Liège's own history is careful here. The club claims, credibly and proudly, to be the only Belgian club to have played all of its seasons at national level rather than dropping into purely local football. But that is not the same thing as always having been in the top flight. In fact, Standard Liège, not RFC Liège, owned the longest uninterrupted stay in Belgium's top division, having been there continuously since 1921. Liégeois are a pioneer club with a uniquely long national footprint. They won first, and they defined the opening scene, but Belgian football did not remain theirs. But that is exactly what real league history looks like. A pioneer creates the frame, but others fill the picture. There's one last coincidence worth enjoying. This title-clinching afternoon in Belgium sits right alongside the first modern Olympic Games in Athens. Football is often said to have almost happened there, with stories about Denmark and late deadlines floating around the edges. But modern Olympic historians have concluded that probably no football matches were staged during the 1896 Athens Olympics. That all comes 4 years later, in 1900, in Paris. But before we go, 3 things to take away from April 12, 1896. First, Belgian football began looking modern astonishingly early. A league table, a round robin, a national title. But the way the season actually unfolded was much messier, with no-shows and forfeits everywhere. Second, FC Liégeois mattered not only because they won first, but because they became one of the 2 clubs that dominated Belgium's opening era, sharing the first 8 titles with Racing Club de Bruxelles. And third, the deeper legacy of that first title is not that Liège stayed on top forever. It is that they helped give Belgian football its first center of gravity, from which the game could spread, experiment, stabilize, and eventually become something national, in the full sense. On this day in 1896, FC Liégeois sealed the first Belgian championship, smashing Union d'Ixelles 9-0, and rode the first title-winning line, in Belgium's football history. That's all for episode 163 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Lost Guy. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the show, leave a 5-star rating, and share it with a football friend. Tomorrow, go to April 1314, when King Edward II issued a royal order banning football in London. I wonder how that went. See you then.